Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel. Welcome to this week's Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race C Race and Strategy Guide. We are heading to the Styrian Mountains, I do believe, in Austria for a Group 3 race around the Red Bull Ring. So detailed settings for this one are 12 laps to get around, timer is at times 10, fuel at times 2. It's just the racing hard tyres available. Well, to be fair, the intermediates and the wets are available, but from my experience of doing the races, from what I've seen so far, there's going to be no need for them, but I would put them on the car or just buy them just in case you need them some point in the week, but it is looking fairly unlikely. There's no mandatory rules, BOP is on, damage is light, slipstream is real, and it is a rolling start. So first things as first, always when we do these race and strategy guides, is to take a look at that pit loss. Even though in general it's not needed, it's always handy to have that kind of pit loss in your head, just so you know how long a pit stop may take, even for the future. Tyre is at times 10 in this one, but it is the racing hard tyres, and tyre wear towards the end of the race is going to make the cars a little bit tricky to drive. But as you can see from the insert here, as we sort of go around the track, and the insert's got the pit stop there, we are quite far up the track by the time the car has managed to do a pit stop and change the tyres, and overall you are looking at a loss of around about 20 seconds just to change the tyres. The good news for this one is that fuel is no issue whatsoever. We have had a number of fuel savers, not always the favourite thing of people out there, but this week fuel is no issue, so rev that engine as much as you want, and yeah, don't worry about the environment for this one, pretty much is the message. So it's pretty much a no-stopper, this one, but it is definitely a no-stopper. You cannot make enough time on the fresh tyres to justify that pit stop. But let's move on to the live race action, and I shall show you how my race unfolded when we jumped onto this race this morning. So this was the 8:30 race on Monday morning. Some pretty big names in this one, to be fair. We've got Tidgeon up in P11, who's obviously getting some footage ready for his video. We've got Wind109, who's a very, very fast top split driver. And at the back we have RA Shadow, you can see him in there at P14, who was also live streaming this race at the time. Do check out his channel if you haven't already. Some interesting stuff on there, and he does a nice little segment in the mornings called the Early Bird Stream, where you get some interesting chat. If you're looking for an early Gran Turismo 7 fix, then that could well be the place for you. But unfortunately, this race is going to turn out to be very much an RCZ fest, as you might expect. We are in the Toyota FT1 just to be different, but it's a prime example. You may have just seen it back there, you may have to rewind the video back to the hairpin, but the RCZ's traction out of slow corners is so ridiculously OP that it's very, very hard for any other cars to compete. As we came out the hairpin there, we had Wind in the McLaren, and he had a RCZ on either side of him. Wind was actually ahead in the McLaren, and the two RCZ just out-tractioned him out the corner to just easily get ahead of him into the next corner, which is fairly ridiculous. There's going to be another few examples of just the power of the RCZ out of the corners in the due course in this video. But for me, this one is just about keeping yourself out of trouble, avoiding those track limit penalties, particularly on this corner here and this last corner. If you go wide, all four wheels over the red and white rumble strips, you will pick up a penalty for that. And yeah, track limits obviously at the Red Bull Ring play a very big part in this one. Turn one up here as well, a little bit unpredictable on the track limits. Just make sure you keep at least two wheels on the red and white curb, and you should be fine to not pick up a half-second penalty. I think the Austrian, not the Austrian, we're in Austria, the Finnish driver here picks up a half-second penalty for track limits, and you definitely want to be avoiding them over the course of the race. So coming into the hairpin here, you can see we actually take a much better line than the Finnish driver in the RCZ, and yeah, he just blows us away on the exit. Such is the traction of that car. I know we've got traction control on here, but the FT1 is so tricky out the slow corners that I just didn't have the confidence to drive it without the TC on, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, we pretty much kind of kept ourselves out of trouble and avoided track limit penalties our way up to a P6 by the end, passing the Finnish driver there. We made this overtake on an RCZ on lap number 6, just outpowering him down the straight. Had a bit of a poor exit out of turn number 1. Was pretty much the same scenario here as we passed, I think that's a BMW there of Welshie, and the BMW there, so he just had a bad, no sorry, it's a Jaguar F-Type. Jeez, oh, you'd think I'd know a Jaguar F-Type if I'd seen one. Yeah, bad exit out of turn 1, and we managed to outpower him down the straight. That RCZ has had an incident of some sort there. I'm not sure if they've just got on the loud pedal a little bit too early, or there has been an incident. And this Subaru, by the looks of it, also had an incident at the midway point of the last lap. But that was enough to put us up into P6 to finish this one. The FD1 actually proving very tricky around here. There's a lot of zones where you need to try and get on that power nice and early, so I do not recommend this car. Everyone's going to be in the RCZ, I'm pretty sure, even this early stage of the race, where you can normally expect a few different cars out there. There was 6 RCZs out of the 15 drivers. This is how your tyre wear is going to look. It looks like most cars are going to be rear limited. Without that brake balance adjuster, you can't really do too much about that. And again, because there's so many traction zones in this track, those rear tyres will prove to be quite influential towards the second half of the race as people try and get the power down and spin out. So do not be scared to use the traction control at this one. I would say you probably don't need it in the RCZ because it pretty much has traction control even when you don't have traction control on. But for a lot of other Group 3 cars, getting out these corners, particularly in the second half of the race when that tyre wear properly kicks in, is definitely something I would not necessarily recommend, but definitely don't just suffer, if you like. You know, we had a kind of fairly interesting, I was listening to RA Shadow's stream as I was doing this race, putting this video together, and it was quite an interesting conversation regarding the traction control going on in that between him and his chat. And yeah, my kind of advice for traction control is if you think you're going to spin the car, if you're almost certain to spin the car over the course of the race distance, and the traction control is the thing that's going to save you from spinning that car, then even if you think traction control is slower and you're losing a couple of attempts per lap, you're not going to lose 5 or 6, 10, 15 seconds by spinning the car. So definitely something to consider. And I think a lot of people are kind of coming to light with the TC and Gran Turismo 7 over as this game kind of starts to mature a little bit, I guess, that the traction control was far less of a factor, or far less impeding, I guess is the word I'm looking for, than TCS was in GT Sport. But yeah, this race, again, much like others, it's a no-stopper. Tyre wear will play a part at the end, so be careful on the throttle over the last few laps. Don't have to worry about fuel, no fuel saving whatsoever in this one, and track limit penalties at the Red Bull Ring are always a big factor. Turn 1, and the last 2 corners in particular. But hopefully this video has been useful in some way, shape or form. Please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button if it has been. We'll be live streaming this one a couple of times over the course of the week. Do join me for that if you can, and I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.